Welcome to School of Pop, where curiosity meets pop culture. I'm Kat Monroe, your host and study buddy in all things entertainment. And this semester, we're exploring the ethics of being a fan.
But I feel like this generation of kids don't seem to understand concert etiquette, or maybe it's just Americans.
And just because communication means having gentle, healthy boundaries, it really freaks me out when the stuff gets thrown on the stage.
If I get hit with more thing, if I see one more thing on this stage, I'm leaving.
I've been getting hit on stage with things for like literally 6 years. I don't know why. This is like new.
Have you noticed how people are like forgetting show etiquette at the moment? People are throwing shit on stage. Have you seen that?
Artists are speaking out now more than ever about inappropriate behavior by fans at their live shows. In today's lesson, we're exploring the current state of concerts in an attempt to answer the questions: has concert etiquette gotten worse? What is acceptable at a live show? Where do we draw the line between passionate fandom and disrespectful behavior? And how can we create a safer, more enjoyable environment for everyone? In our deep dive into the world of concert etiquette, we'll be joined by Cameron Bristow, an avid concert-goer, to unpack these issues, gain insight into why these behaviors happen, and discuss how we can all be better concert-goers. Plus,
hey, I'm Sienna.
And I'm Lydia.
We're joined by members of Double Standard to talk about their journey, artistry, and upcoming EP out this Friday in a special show and tell artist spotlight. But before we dive in, it's time for your school announcements, aka your pop recap, where we run down the biggest news and trends in entertainment. First of all, Coachella has concluded after 2 epic weekends. I had such a fun time watching the festival from my bedroom. Just so many great performances. I mean, Charli XCX, Marina, Lady Gaga put on the most Gaga performance ever. I also really loved Tyla and T-Pain. Their performances were great watches. I recommend checking them out as well. I also feel like this was another year of really great special guests. Like Charli XCX, I had such a time watching her set. I mean, she brought out Lorde, Billie Eilish, and Troye Sivan. And then you had Clairo, who brought out Bernie Sanders, and Megan Thee Stallion brought out Victoria Monet and Queen Latifah. It was just like so many exciting moments from the weekends. And I know there's always a lot of discourse online about how Coachella has changed over the years, but I don't know, it still kind of feels like a bucket list thing for me. Like one year I will make it out to the desert. I feel that it is one of those must experience festivals that I just have to check out. But in the meantime, festival season is just getting underway. I feel like for America, Coachella is really just the kickoff to a really awesome summer for festival girlies. We just have so many good lineups this year. I mean, Lollapalooza, Gov Ball, Roots Picnic, Boston Calling, Bonnaroo, Outside Lands. It's like a whole summer of like really amazing festivals, and a lot of similar artists are kind of following along for these festivals. I mean, that's always the case, but this year it's like, I know Olivia Rodrigo is doing a ton of festival sets this summer, Tyler the Creator as well, Hozier, Doechii, Benson Boone, Sabrina Carpenter. Those are just some of the names that are popping up on a lot of these festival sets this summer, and I just feel like it's such a good set of headliners this time. All Things Go also just dropped their DC lineup into the mix last week, and if you're listening to this the day the episode comes out, I believe New York's lineup is coming out today. The DC lineup, though, is stacked, however, with performances from Noah Kahan, The Marias, Lucy Dacus, Clairo, Doechii, and Kesha. I feel like it has a really strong undercard, too. Now, I will be at several of these festivals actually this summer, which I am super, super excited about. And of course, I will be taking you all along with me. I also reposted a ton of this summer's music festival lineups over on Instagram at FanFaveMedia if you want to check those out and let me know what's your favorite lineup this year. In other news, this is a story that broke the Broadway internet, and we have to talk about it today. Leslie Odom Jr. has revealed that he will be returning to Hamilton on Broadway. Now, this year marks the 10-year anniversary of Hamilton, and to celebrate, Leslie Odom Jr. is returning to the Tony Award-winning role that he originated, Aaron Burr, for a limited time only. It's arguably one of the best performances in the entire production. I mean, his role as Aaron Burr is literally iconic. Every theater kid all around the world knows this. And he initially departed Hamilton back in 2016, but he's now going to be in the show from September 9th until November 23rd. So just about 10 weeks. And this is a super high demand event. Tickets are not cheap. However, this is really exciting news. I'm going to see about going to check this out because I never got to see any of the original Broadway members of Hamilton, and I think this might be one of those Broadway things that you just cannot miss. So I cannot wait. I will keep you posted if I'm going to make it up to see that. Hopefully so. Fingers are crossed. For more entertainment news, join the class roster by subscribing to the Pop Recap newsletter at poprecap.beehive.com. That's poprecap.beehive.com. New editions release the final Sunday of each month. It's a full recap of all the pop culture things to know about from the month. So definitely make sure that you're subscribed over there. We're starting our lesson off with our very first show and tell segment. This is where I spotlight someone or something worth checking out in the entertainment world. Today is an artist spotlight show and tell as we are joined by your favorite girl band's favorite girl band, Double Standard. Consisting of Sienna, Lydia, Lauren, Meg, and Zoe, the New York-based indie band is getting ready to release their debut self-titled EP this Friday. I sat down with Sienna and Lydia to talk all about the new project and the band's journey so far. Thank you so much for joining. Let's start with the beginning. I know Double Standard originally started as a duo, the two of you. Can you talk a bit about how it all came together and how it evolved into the full band we know today?
Yeah, Lydia and I started working together really in a natural sort of way. We were both like pursuing sort of solo things and then worked with each other on music so much that one day we were kind of like, why are we not just a band? Like, why are we not a band? So we continued working together and then had a few iterations of like people playing with us. But it wasn't until we found like Lauren, Zoe, and Meg that it really felt like the band was together. And we found them all like in the span of
like a month.
And it was because we were looking for bandmates who weren't men. Yeah.
Yeah, we met in college and then we kind of played with, I guess it was like a backing band, like we were a duo, and then the other people weren't necessarily like a part of the fold of what we were doing. They were just like playing with us, and we wanted to do like the band thing in the way that like a lot of our friends and people around us kind of in the New York scene were doing it, but there was just so many groups that were just like all men, or it would be like, you know, like a female like front man and then like a male band, and like every time we see that an angel loses its wings. So we just really wanted to like kind of infiltrate the like indie rock scene of New York, but with like a ultra girl band vibe. And so then that's when we wanted to like not just have it be like us two, but rather like a 4 or 5 piece.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely think we need more women bands out there. I have to ask, where did the name Double Standard come from and what does it mean to you now?
Kind of like what Sienna said, we had a couple different iterations of like names. And when we settled upon the 5 of us, we didn't want to feel like we were like passing on our previous name to people, or like, I don't know, it wasn't something that was like representative of the 5 of us. We wanted it to feel like everyone had an equal stake in the game. So we were all sort of simultaneously brainstorming band names, some more terrible than others. And like for a 24-hour period, we had settled on a different name. And then our drummer came back the next day and was like, we absolutely cannot be named this. I hate this. We have to do something different. And so we were like, okay, fine. Like we want everyone to like the name, but like you come up with a list of things then, of things that like settle in your spirit. And so Meg came up with a list and we all sort of like ears perked up at Double Standard, and she credits like her like lifelong best friend Ondine for coming up with the idea. I think they sat and made the list together. So thank you, Ondine. But we wanted the name to be like, it was like, how can we like allude to the fact that we're like a girl band without it being like gendered name
Girl,
of like
princess
power, girl boss, you know, but like kind of like touch on the like tongue-in-cheek of it all, of our vibe. And like a lot of our songs sort of like thematically will like poke fun at like men in music, just sort of like naturally from our own experiences. So we wanted the name to do that as well, while also being like mildly ambiguous, but also like very on the nose.
Yeah, that's really great. And if someone is looking for, an all girls group to kind of discover or find, and they're tuning into you for the first time, how would you describe your sound or maybe just the energy of Double Standard as a band?
I feel like I always think about this moment when we first started recording the EP where like we made this playlist of reference tracks to give to our producer and he kind of like looked at us like we were stupid. Not stupid, that's mean, but like he was like, you have tracks from like 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Like these are wildly different sounds. Like I don't like what do you want me to do with this? And so like Sienna and I went through like song by song. We were like, okay, like the tremolo from this song, but the harmonies from this song. And if you take this 70, like in a way that I feel like we are very mixed bag in that we all have wildly different music tastes. But of course, like, I mean, we have always been like Sienna and I particularly like big like lyric people or like songwriting people. So I think we might be more like lyric focused than your average rock band, but it's like that rock band like feel and sound with the like emphasis on lyrical quality of like a singer-songwriter or like a pop girly because like I don't know, I feel like umbrella wise our music taste is kind of a mix of the two. Like we love the sound like the grittiness of like a big 70s rock band or like a 90s grunge band, but like we grew up like a Sheryl Crow like singer-songwriter type or like Carole King, etc., etc. So yeah, that's the vibe.
For sure. You can really hear all the different influences across all the tracks you've released so far. Each one kind of pulls from something a little different. They have distinct sounds, like from Crush or to Maine. There's a cohesive thread, a shared energy, but it's really cool how you're kind of playing around with different sounds. Your new EP is dropping on Friday. Is there a track you're especially excited for people to hear or one that means something special to you?
I think we're all really excited for Butterfly Bomb, which was like kind of the last track to come together on the EP. It wasn't necessarily the last one we like tacked on, but it was the last one that we were like we got to recording and we were like it
How is it
wasn't
gonna
done.
work? And,
Like the
like,
song was not done and we were like had no idea structurally like where it was going. It like lacked a bridge.
our
Like
producer was like, it's kind of like jazzy. And we were like, no, we swear. It
we
can
had
be.
this like Sienna had this voice memo from when she like first wrote like the base of it and we all knew that we wanted it to be a part of the EP despite it being like the most unfinished and our producer really like couldn't get it out of his head. He was like what do we need to like do something with that piano song like whatever and for the longest time we were just like it was sort of the one that existed over there that we were like we'll do something with that eventually and then we just sat down for like a whole day in the studio like Meg was in the booth and the drums and she had like her speaker on so she could hear us on the other side and Lauren was just fiddling around with the guitar and like Zoe following her along on the bass and Sienna singing her part I'm singing my part and it just felt like a really like a band moment, where we were just sort of like riffing off each other. And like, I think we ended up playing it for like 20 minutes. Just like imagine this song on loop or like each part. And just like the way it came about afterwards, we were like, oh my God, like, is this music? Like, this is so electric. It felt like one of those like kind of movie moments where a song like reaches its like peak and we're like, oh, okay, like this is what we were searching for. So it's very fun to play live because we all sort of like get super, super into it. And it's very cathartic and it kind of builds in a similar way to Maine, but like different. So it has that like catharsis that we love in a song. Yeah. Do you have one? Or is it
No,
still
I think
Butterfly
that's like
Bomb?
probably true.
The last track, that has a really stupid name. Bushwick K-Hole, parentheses, Better Than You is also really fun because that was the first one the five of us like all worked on together. We were like in Lauren's room making a demo for like 10 hours on like a beautiful spring day, like a year ago today. Not today, but like a year ago. And it was also like one of those moments where like front to back like started the song and finished it, all five of us together, which doesn't often happen when there's like five people trying to make music. So that also will always be like a fun, special one to us.
Those both sound super exciting. Those moments where you're really working hard and it's just like your vision clicks with what you're thinking in your head. That's really great. And I cannot wait to hear both of those. You've also put out some really cool visuals. I mean, all of your music videos that you've put out so far, very imaginative. And I think Sweat is probably my personal favorite. Like the way you all jump into the TV, the vintage TV screens, and then the dance breaks, iconic. Love the dance breaks. So much fun. I wanted to know, how do you come up with your concepts for your videos? Are you working closely with a director? Is it something that you brainstorm together as a group?
The director is one of our really good friends, Trillium, who has directed all of our videos and continues to direct all of our videos.
We have one more that will come
yes,
out
yes.
soon.
And that's what we're doing this
really
Friday.
Epic. Yeah, this Friday we're filming it.
Awesome.
But Trillium is really awesome. I feel like she has such crazy, amazing ideas, and it will often start with like kind of a vague idea from like Lydia or I or like the band.
It's like a Pinterest board, I feel like is usually how it
Yeah.
starts. We're like, she'll hear the song. We're like, this is kind of like the vibe of the song. And here is like a Pinterest board aesthetic with maybe like a couple specific like shots we're thinking of or some like vague storyline that's not like super fleshed out. And then
Trillium will like take it and run for real.
Yeah,
Like,
and like make it into like a cohesive story. Like that's definitely like we don't necessarily know how to like translate it into film, or like we'll have this idea, but it's like it's very much like aesthetics based or like just sort of like a vague story that maybe isn't as like fully fleshed out as we want. And like Trillium is very good at like adding in the Easter eggs and like incorporating how like even if the storyline is like directly like narrative, she's really good at kind of like imbuing more meaning into the visuals and what like might have previously been there. And she also like she's just like the best to work with because I feel like she really like gets our music and like loves our music and is like a really awesome hype man. So she puts a lot of like care and effort into like making sure the visuals aren't just like superfluous. I feel like a lot of artists feel like a music video is like an obligation, or they just like use, this is me being a hater, they just like use their visuals as an opportunity to almost like act out the song. As opposed to like using it as like an actual tool to like build upon the meaning of the song or like greater like expand the like universe in which like the song exists. Like I don't know if that's like
like a higher level of creativity. You've got storylines.
Yeah, anyone can just like lip sync in front of a camera and like call that a music video, but like if we just like we have a lot of fun with it. And when we like started the band, that was like something like it took us a long time to put out our music. Like Sienna and I have been working together for like almost 3 years maybe. But like we went through a lot of different like iterations of like how we wanted to present ourselves and like be a band and be artists. And when it comes to like music videos, we were both on the same page, or just like visuals in general of like, we didn't just want to be like singer-songwriters or like people that just sort of like cranked out singles. We really wanted to like have our music exist in a world and like, like be like transported in a place. And like we wanted to like, despite like only being a band for like a year and like no one really knows who we are or like gives a fuck about what we do, like we wanted to like take ourselves really seriously from the get-go so that other people did, or like put our all into stuff like visuals and in music videos, so that it wasn't like we didn't wait till we like had loads of money or like people were paying attention to then all of a sudden like build the universe. Like we wanted to start that from the beginning. So it's always been really important to us, and we like waste all of our money on our music videos, but it's always so worth it.
No, it's so worth it. I mean, that's so important to really have like world building, an idea of your identity as a group. That's super key in music. It's really important from the start. So I love that you bring that up because it's really important and it's really special that you have that idea so early on.
We also really love like pop girlies. Like I feel like that's something I love to like talk about. It's like, we grew up with like those like iconic pop stars like Beyonce and Taylor Swift, et cetera, who do that with like their album cycles. There's like really like a world that they live in. Or like Lady Gaga, she just performed at Coachella. People that like despite being a band, there's still like that sort of inclination to like have like an era when it comes to your music, if you will.
Yeah, and that makes it so much fun. And kind of speaking to that, like your identity as a group and your world building and everything you're pulling together to put on a performance. I personally have not experienced a double standard show yet. I hope I do soon. I really need to. You've got the EP release show coming up, and I wanted to know with all the big things you've got going ahead, what can people expect from your live experience and what's on the horizon for the rest of 2025?
It's honestly like the live show is so fun. Like you should come. Um, we have the best time ever, and I think our audiences do too. And I think something that us as a band we like really lean into is like Lydia more so than me, but we're both ex-dancers, and like Lauren is also was like a musical theater kid. When we get on that stage, we do like put on a performance. We are in the performance mindset. And I just remember at our last show, like getting into the crowd afterwards, and these two like really straight guys who had never seen us before and were brought by their girlfriends were kind of drunk and standing next to me, and they were like, "That was the best thing I've ever seen. Like, you guys are so lit." And I think
So
like
funny.
that's the energy that you can expect. You should definitely come.
Yeah, like we kind of like similar like the pop girly of it all. Like I don't we spent a lot of time in the last 2 years like becoming like students of the New York City music scene, which sounds really like blowing smoke, but like we just kind of made it a point for as long as we've known each other at least to like go to everyone's shows and like meet as many people and like go to every single tiny venue and like I don't know, really like be a part of the community. And so like we've always like I feel like in dance we would always talk about this is like pick and choose like your favorite things from your favorite dancers and like copy them and make it your own. And so I don't know, it was always like we would see things on stage or like or even seeing like bigger artists. It was like how can we adapt that on like a smaller scale or how can we make it not just feel like you're like going to see like an amateur band at a little venue in New York, where there's like 50 people in the audience, like regardless of if there's, just your family and friends there, or if you've got like a huge crowd of people who've paid to see you, like how can we make this a show that's worthwhile? And again, isn't just us like rattling off the songs in a row, but rather like you're hearing them in a new light. And like whether it's the order or how we've played them, or if we're adding more like instrumentals, whatnot, like live music is so expensive these days. It's like put on a show. Like so many people like go up on stage, and by this I mean men. They just like put their little like jeans and like a t-shirt on, and they sort of like croon into the microphone, and like everyone claps like they've like discovered something new. And it's like, let us show you how to like perform.
A performance. And in that vein, like I have to give a One Direction shout out, of course. I feel like I remember watching videos from all of their shows and being like, oh my God, like the like Niall Harry interaction. And so like we as
We like
fangirls,
interact on
like
stage.
know that, and we like make sure we interact on stage with each other too from that.
Yes, you're very intentional in everything you do. And I love that. And I love that One Direction reference because that used to be everything. That's like what everybody would talk about is like what they're doing on stage and how they would interact with each other. It's so funny. This has really been a great exploration into your artistry and everything you've got going on. Where can people follow you, check out the EP when it comes out, and just keep up with everything that you're up to?
Most of our platforms are Double Standard the band. So on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter is Double Standard, but the O is a zero, which is very convoluted. We will have a website at some point, and we will be dropping merch soon, which is really exciting. The EP comes out on April 25th. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your music. There might also be physical copies that we will be selling soon. It's going to be one last music video, so make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for that. Hopefully this summer we will get back to writing more, making new music. Hopefully someone takes us on tour. But that is what you can expect from Double Standard.
Huge thanks again to Sienna and Lydia from Double Standard for kicking off our very first Show and Tell segment. Make sure to stream their debut EP this Friday. Show and Tell is a special segment I'll be bringing in from time to time this semester to spotlight artists and pop culture things that I think deserve a little extra attention. So keep an eye out for more. In our first lesson, we laid the foundation. What does it mean to be a fan? And why does any of this matter? Now we're zooming in on how fandom actually plays out in the real world. This next section of the semester is all about the visible stuff. We're looking at how fans show up, how they express themselves, and where the boundaries start to blur. From pit behavior to playbill signatures, from fan edits to financial sacrifices, these are the choices fans make that everyone can see. Because before we can talk about what complicates fandom, we need to understand what it looks like in action. Today, we're diving into the world of concert etiquette. This is such a hot topic right now, really has been for years, with everyone complaining about how terribly people act at shows now. And by everyone, I mean both fans and artists. Now, personally, I haven't noticed a dramatic shift at most of the shows that I go to. Maybe it's luck, maybe it's the types of concerts I attend, but a lot of these problems for me have always existed. People have always camped outside of venues. They've always recorded performances and had chaotic pit etiquette. The only difference to me seems that social media amplifies when things go wrong. You don't see viral threads about people behaving perfectly at a concert because that's just expected. That being said, I did go to a show recently that changed my perspective. At this show, it finally clicked for me. The bad behaviors aren't necessarily new, but they've evolved in ways that make them a lot harder to avoid, and I just hadn't experienced them firsthand until I went to this one show. For example, I don't have a problem with people recording themselves at shows, but then I realized the people that were complaining, they weren't talking about people just recording. It's that it's now a trend apparently to turn the camera around and film yourself with a 0.5 and flash on. I record myself sometimes at concerts. I'll have the camera on me. I won't even be looking at the phone necessarily, but if it's like one of my favorite songs, I want to capture the memory of me enjoying it live because it's me. Nobody else can have that video. Nobody else can take that video of myself, you know? It's like, okay, I might record a short little clip of me singing along to my favorite part of the song at a show, right? But then I'll get on Twitter or TikTok and see people being like, stop doing that. That's terrible behavior. And I'm like, why are you so mad? It's not bothering anyone. I'm minding my own business and enjoying the show that I paid for how I like. But at this show, I realized that it's not just recording yourself. Like, I was getting full flashlight in my face. I was like, oh, because my videos, I never thought to put the flash on. My videos will be dark with the original concert lighting, and it wasn't always the best quality. I mean, it was for me, not to post necessarily. It was for me to go back and look at and laugh, because growing up at shows when I was a kid and going to concerts, my parents would record videos of me reacting to stuff and dancing around. And so I've got all these videos of me at my first shows as a kid and like growing up, and I always thought that was cute. So I like to get some sometimes today. And so I understand wanting to film yourself at a show, but with the flash on in other people's personal space, I didn't realize that people were being so disruptive to do it. And then while that was happening in front of me, I was sitting in front of two girls that were screaming, like singing along, but screeching in the back of my head where I couldn't even hear the artist at times. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I get it now. I understand what people are talking about now. So we're going to talk about all of that today because I understand where things have kind of jumped off the tracks a bit. I wanted to start this lesson with a bit of an exploration of the world of concert etiquette, looking at the history of all of this because, like I said, to me it doesn't seem that the problems didn't exist in the past. It's how they're evolving. So I really wanted to look at the history and take us all through a journey. From opera houses in the 18th century to sold-out arenas today, concert behavior has always been a reflection of fan culture at the time. Audiences push boundaries, whether through screaming, throwing objects, or trying to get closer to the artist they love. And some things, like throwing things on stage or pushing in crowds, have gotten worse over time. Let's take a look at how things have evolved. At opera houses in the 18th and 19th centuries, audiences often talked loudly, ate, and even conducted business during performances. Fast forward to the 1840s, and then we get Lestomania, this sort of mass hysteria surrounding the Hungarian composer Franz Liszt. Fans exhibited obsessive behaviors from fainting at the sight of him to even trying to get locks of his hair. It was so bizarre for the time that doctors literally studied it as a potential medical condition, fearing it was contagious. Now, by the 1960s, Beatlemania took fandom to unprecedented levels. The Beatles faced deafening screams at their concerts, often struggling to hear themselves perform. Fans fainted, stormed barricades, and created chaos that normalized a new era of hysteria at concerts, and it was a big part of why the British band stopped touring in 1966. If you've ever wondered why venues sometimes take the tops off of water bottles they sell at shows, well, you can actually thank the older generations of fans for that. Bottling, a practice where fans would throw bottles, sometimes full, at artists, was a pretty common way to express angst in the past. It became such a hazard that venues had to adapt, banning bottle caps to reduce the risk of injury because obviously, a full bottle would go a lot farther and hit harder than an empty one. It's physics. In the 1970s, artists like Iggy Pop, AC/DC, and Led Zeppelin faced bottling incidents. But it wasn't just bottles that fit this description of bottling. Ozzy Osbourne famously had a bat thrown at him on stage in 1982, which he bit the head off thinking it was fake. And in 2004, David Bowie got a lollipop stuck in his eye during a show in Norway, forcing him to stop mid-performance and tell the audience to please keep your affection to yourself. And I think this one incident in particular is interesting, and we will have so many similar examples throughout this semester because I feel that a lot of bad fan behavior isn't mean-spirited. Some things that fans do are simply to show appreciation. It's not intended to cause harm. People get excited and they aren't thinking. There's no malicious intent, but it doesn't necessarily matter because it can cause harm, and people have to be mindful of that. But in this case, David Bowie highlighted that, hey, someone threw a lollipop at me as a sign of affection, but he made it clear he did not want any of that. If you look up bottling incidents at concerts, you will find so many from the past few decades. Some artists take it in stride, like Bowie, who actually decided to extend his show after the incident, while other artists get seriously injured, like what we saw more recently with BB Rexha, who got hit in the face and got a black eye by someone throwing their phone because they thought it would be funny. In some cases where the artist gets injured, obviously the show gets stopped, but also in some incidents, I found that it led to the cancellation of future tour dates. Going back to the Bowie incident though, let's look at some more times where objects were thrown out of admiration. When George Harrison mentioned his love for jelly beans in 1963, the Beatles received a ton of unsolicited jelly bean gifts. In San Francisco, there was a specific incident in their show where fans threw jelly beans at the band, disrupting the show, obviously, because American jelly beans are actually harder than the ones in the UK. And then later on in the tour, in Detroit, fans were ultimately kicked out for throwing the candy. And another example of what I'll call appreciation bottling, throwing underwear on stage. This is often rooted back to Tom Jones in the 1960s, and it's become a playful expression of admiration for decades that is often well received. To this day, fans often toss gifts on stage to show their admiration or to be funny. Like last year, I saw Billie Eilish in concert and she danced around with bras that were thrown on stage from fans. But remember, some playful gifts can quickly turn into a safety issue, like when Olivia Rodrigo got hit in the head with a bouquet of flowers. Or worse, when Harry Styles turned a chicken nugget getting thrown on stage into a silly moment, only for a fan at a later date to hit him in the eye with a Skittle, and he got injured. Crowds literally pushing boundaries isn't new either. The Who's infamous 1979 concert in Cincinnati resulted in 11 deaths due to a crowd crush after attendees believed the band had taken the stage early. And in 2021, Astroworld tragically showed how dangerous these situations still are. Festival seating and pit culture always had risks, but social media has changed why fans push. A big problem with concert etiquette today is that people aren't just fighting for a better view. They're fighting for a viral moment, and in many cases, they're focused on their own experience rather than the collective well-being of everyone else around them. Speaking of viral moments, phones have completely changed how we experience concerts. Before social media, people still recorded shows. Fans brought camcorders in the 80s and 90s, and some artists even banned or actively pushed back on recording because it distracted audiences. Prince is a good example of an artist who was notoriously anti-recording even before the rise of social media. But today, phones aren't just capturing moments. They're blocking views and making some fans prioritize the perfect TikTok clip over actually experiencing the music. And then there's scream singing. As we saw with Beatlemania, they had fans screaming over the music, but now some fans scream the lyrics off pitch during quiet songs and at a volume that almost sounds competitive. It's as if they're proving they're the biggest fan by being the loudest, which is kind of a new phenomenon. The history of concert etiquette shows how fan culture evolves. From jelly beans to Skittles, from fighting over locks of hair to selling pieces of confetti from shows, from fainting to screaming everyone's ears out. It's always been a mix of passion, chaos, and unintended consequences. And that's what makes concert etiquette so fascinating. It reflects something deeper, how we connect, how we celebrate, and sometimes how we lose ourselves in the moment. But while that behavior has always walked the line, today's line looks blurrier than ever. So what changed? Why are people throwing phones and rushing the stage with a level of entitlement and desperation that feels different? Some point to a post-pandemic loss of social awareness. Others cite the rise of TikTok and influencer culture, where main character syndrome turns moments into performances. And of course, a new generation of concert goers is figuring all of this out in real time, often for the first time. Psychologist Dr. Lynn Zubernis wrote an article for Psychology Today about this exact phenomenon. She explained how social media has shifted fan expectations, how parasocial relationships can blur boundaries, and how emotional contagion in a crowd can amplify even a passing thought into action. Here's what she told me when I asked her to share a few words on why this is happening more often.
It's fans getting a little bit too invested in wanting the parasocial relationship to be more reciprocal than it is, in wanting that look, that acknowledgement, that something. And it can feel, especially when you're in a concert situation, there's a thing that's happening called emotional contagion, which intensifies everybody's emotions in the crowd. So if maybe you would have had, oh, I wish they would, when you're in a crowd of people and your emotions are intensified, that, oh, I wish they would look at me becomes, look at me, damn it, I'm right here and I paid $2,000 for this ticket. So then people kind of forget themselves in the moment. And I know I wrote one article on the phenomenon of people throwing things at performers on stage, which has really increased in recent years. And some performers have actually gotten injured. Some fans have gotten injured. Like, that is one of those over the line things that is definitely not okay. In most cases, almost all cases, I think, they were not trying to injure the celebrity. They were desperate to get the celebrity's attention. So again, reminding yourself, this is a parasocial relationship. Would it feel good if the person on the stage made eye contact with you in the sea of a million people? Not a million, 5,000 people, however many are at the concert. Yes, of course it would. And that's normal to wish for that. Is it likely to happen when you're one of 5,000 people? No, it really isn't. And you can still enjoy that connection with being in proximity with that person without getting that personal acknowledgement.
That definitely makes sense. And then you throw in social media into the mix and it's just a lot.
Everyone's filming it and, having their face in it with them in the background. And again, all normal things to want to do, but you really do have to try to keep reminding yourself of where those boundaries should be, while also being gentle with yourself and saying, okay, I know why I feel this way, but it doesn't mean I have to throw my phone to get it.
You'll hear more from Dr. Zubernis in our conversation on parasocial relationships later this semester, but her insight here really sets the stage for understanding where the fan mindset comes from. So now that we've broken down the why behind some of this behavior with a little help from Dr. Zubernis, I wanted to bring someone in who's living this out in real time. Cameron is a marketing and media business owner and lover of all live entertainment. He loves all genres of music, but especially pop, and some of his favorite artists include Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo, and Dua Lipa. Since he's a true concert veteran, I sat down with Cameron to get his take on concert etiquette today, whether the vibes have changed since the pandemic, and to hear about any wild experiences that made him go, okay, that was too far. And then, because we like to have a little fun around here, we'll play a quick round of pop quiz where we put different fan behaviors to the test and decide if they get a pass or a fail. Thank you so much for joining me. What is your take on concert etiquette? And have you noticed a shift like post-pandemic or with the rise of social media and TikTok?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, in my opinion, concert etiquette is really all about just being kind to those around you and remembering like you are here to see an artist and, really they are the star. I think back to some concert experiences I've had where people kind of think, oh, like I'm the main character. I need to make sure I have the perfect experience, even though I may be in the upper bowl. So I think an example of that is like, if you're at a concert and people are standing up and dancing, encourage that vibe. I've seen maybe a few people in the past like yell at people for standing up because they want to sit down. And it's like, well, you could have gotten a different ticket if you wanted to make this happen. But, of course, I do see that there's many scenarios where you would want to sit down in like, that instance. So I think it's really about playing it by ear and just, being the best person you can be for the concert experience and the environment that you're in. I would say post-pandemic, I would probably see a bit more of not proper etiquettes compared to before. And I think a lot of that is just because I would even say I feel like there's just so many people going to concerts now compared to how there used to be maybe a few years ago when I would go before the pandemic. I would say maybe one of the most prominent examples I have seen in the last few years is just whenever somebody has their smartphone out and they're almost like a giraffe holding it up, trying to get the best video, which I totally understand. And I think you should be able to get all of the videos you want, relive the moment. You're spending so much for concerts nowadays. It's important to document that. But I think, with that, like, make sure you're not blocking somebody's view. I always like to try to keep mine just up to like my head and angle it so that way you can still rewatch the video whenever you want, but you're not really interrupting anybody's view. But yes, I think all about doing good, all about being good. That's what it's all about at concerts.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's so interesting that you mentioned kind of like people paying to be there because concerts have gotten so much more expensive, especially since the pandemic.
It's wild.
And I feel like that's a big contributor to it because people are like, I paid hundreds of dollars to be here. It has to go my way. It has to be perfect. And I think that's just something else to keep in mind is that everybody else did too. Have you ever had any crazy experiences, maybe recently at a show that you experienced where you were like, yeah, this is terrible concert etiquette?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think back to a GA pit I was in just a few months ago, and it was totally overbooked. The person probably should have played a bigger venue, but it was getting really squished in there and people were like trying to like rush up to the barricade as close as they could to the point where it was hard for people to breathe. And I saw people pass out and a lot of water being passed out by security. And, I think there comes a point where whenever you have one of these big pits where we all just need to, take a step back, remember, like, if you're not up front already, like being 6 inches closer is not going to make your video 100 times better. So, let's all just, enjoy the moment. At the end of the day, I don't think you're really going to remember like, oh, I was extremely this close. You're just going to remember having that moment. And I think that's really what that's all about.
Yeah, that's such a big issue, especially at general admission shows. I mean, they always stress me out.
100%.
And I feel like that's where I see the worst crowd behavior. Last year, actually, I went to see Hozier in concert, and I was in the pit, and I thought his fans would be pretty chill, and most of them were, but there was this one situation where a guy was pushing a woman up to the front, and this was like after the opener. Wow. This was like 15 minutes before Hozier was coming on, and they were pretending that they had a friend up front, but people were absolutely not falling for it. Like, they were not letting them up, but she eventually got right up to next to me, and he gave up and went to the back, but she stayed and she was vaping during the first few songs, and then after that she left too. So it was really strange, and stuff like that just always happens, people pushing to the front in those small pit spaces, and it just makes the whole experience a lot more chaotic than it needs to be.
I feel like I can't think of like one where I haven't seen somebody like half an hour late like trying to weave through.
Exactly. Okay, now we're going to transition into a little bit of a game.
Let's do it.
It's called Pop Quiz, and here's how it'll work. I'll name a type of concert behavior, and then we'll decide whether it gets a pass or a fail. Now, some of these are going to be opinionated, while others I think are straightforward. Our first one is bringing signs to shows. Pass or fail?
Ooh, that's hard. I think And if I can't say this answer, that's totally okay. Pass in maybe an arena setting or times you're not covering up somebody's view, but absolute fail when it comes to GA concerts.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I kind of put this one in the fail category. I think small fan projects or like little pieces of paper with messages can be cute when it's done with good intentions. But lately it feels like signs have become more about getting attention or trying to go viral. I remember during Niall Horan's tour last year, someone held up a sign asking for a hug, and he actually gave them one. But then after that, it felt like every show had somebody trying to do the exact same thing, hoping to get noticed. So it becomes less about the moment and more about trying to recreate it. And honestly, if the sign isn't blocking anyone's view, okay, maybe it's fine. But a lot of the time it is. And I remember a couple years ago, I went to see Harry Styles at MSG. And in the pit during the first song, Golden, people were already arguing because someone in the front had this massive sign that blocked everyone's view. Because in the pit, you're all standing on the same level. So it's not like you can hold it up without blocking people behind you. And so that was like a huge issue that took away from the very first song, that whole experience. So I have to say, when signs start disrupting the show or become more about attention than appreciation or just a fun little thing, it's definitely a problem.
Yeah, and I definitely think on that point as well, like if you hold it up for a bit, like don't hold it up the rest of the concert. I saw the Driver Era a few weeks ago, and somebody was holding up a sign probably for like 50% of the concert, and like they definitely noticed the sign and were ignoring you. And at that point, I think it's time to just, enjoy the rest of the concert.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's fun for a brief second maybe, but then it's like, you're just trying to get attention and get noticed. At some point with those cases, just let it go.
Yeah. You're going to have more fun anyways.
The next one is scream singing. So not just singing along, but like high, off pitch, very loud singing along.
Ooh, maybe a hot take, but I will actually pass this. I think, enjoy the moment, have some fun. I think there is a point sometimes where maybe if the acoustics aren't the best and you're obviously like gonna ruin somebody's experience, maybe not. But in general, I am pretty encouraging of that.
Yeah, I feel that some artists do say like scream or sing along loud, but then in other cases, like I went to Jingle Ball in December last year, and Gracie Abrams, she's kind of quiet, she's pretty soft when she sings, and the people were screaming, like singing so loud that I couldn't half hear her at times. So I would have to fail it for those types of scenarios. Like you shouldn't be screaming over a slow, sad song that's already very soft, But if the artist is encouraging it, then it's not my place, I guess, to say like stop screaming. Singing and screaming loud, that's one thing. I want to make sure that I can hear the artist because that's who I paid to come see, not somebody next to me performing over them.
Oh, absolutely. I can never scream shout if anything, because whenever I do a video, all you can hear is me and nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, and then you could lose your voice and stuff the day after and be like, what happened? Because you were screaming. That's what happened. A whole 2-hour show, you were screaming. The next one is camping overnight. Pass or fail?
Fail. I think I've heard, a little too many stories of people, getting in trouble, getting hurt, getting robbed even, doing this kind of stuff. And even then, I don't think it's necessarily fair to camp overnight. I think it's important to, show up for artists you really love, but not everyone has the ability to do that. And I think when people can camp out for a week and, you're even just trading spots, so you're not even like camping out the entire time. Like that's fair for people who want to show up later, people who have to work. I think, venues should set certain rules that you're going to follow. And yeah, whatever the venue rules are, I think just make sure to respect those.
I agree. I'd also say this is a fail for me. I mean, people can do whatever they want, but I feel I wouldn't really do it. And also when you're camping for multiple days, I do think that starts to set a precedent. For example, if nobody showed up, then nobody's going to go. But once somebody shows up 3 days in advance, then more people are going to come and feel like they have to do it too to get a good spot. And I feel like ultimately it leads to health and safety risks sometimes, because then maybe you're not eating properly or drinking enough. You're in an unsafe place. Maybe there's roaches crawling around. I know that was common in New York. People were camping outside of Penn Station. That is not safe. But people do it. And I know some venues that have started to become strict on this because they'll say, oh, no overnight camping, but then fans will create their own lines and then they'll still honor it. So I'm not really sure what's happening there. But another thing that I am seeing, which you've probably seen as well, is when they say you can get a wristband and then you come back later type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's the way it should be done.
Yeah, I feel like that even kind of encourages camping more because then people know that they can go and they can camp out, but now they can grab a wristband in the morning and then they can go home in between the show and camping and get a shower and go eat or take a nap. So it's almost like with the wristband system, that just rewards fans for pushing through because they know they can go home.
One of my favorite systems I've ever seen, and I forget which concert it was, but they had it so you couldn't line up until a certain time. I think it was Harry Styles in Palm Springs. And then they would randomly pick where the line starts out of like the first 500 people. So that way, like, you wouldn't show up too early.
Yeah, and I remember they got rid of it. Like it was the first half or so of his tour and then they changed it. At least in New York, they didn't do it. And I was kind of disappointed by it. But even when they did do an orderly line, I didn't camp. And I also ended up not getting a wristband or anything. I just showed up when doors opened and I still ended up a row behind the people that did have wristbands. Like I had a really good view. I was maybe 3 or 4 rows in. It wasn't a huge difference to me. So I don't even think camping is all that necessary, especially if the artist has like a 360 stage.
Yeah, I totally get like wanting to be up there, but I think there's definitely some stuff to be done in the world of concerts with that.
Okay, next I want to know, throwing things on stage, pass or fail?
Big fail. Can never see a reason that this is acceptable. Not only are you risking harm to somebody, even if you don't even hurt one of the artists, like you're probably scaring them, I think they go through so much being in the public eye. It has to be terrifying being on that big scale where you're really at the discretion of security. I would never do that ever.
Exactly. It's a fail for me too. And then there's so many safety concerns. I mean, even if it's not to the artist directly, if there's water on the stage and they have electric guitars, it can ruin so many different things. You can hit another fan. So it's just not a great idea all around. And it sucks because I feel like a lot of fans will think, oh, I'm showing appreciation. I'm doing something good. I'm trying to give them a gift I made. But it's just the wrong time, wrong place. It's not a good idea at all.
100%. Also, I think people overestimate how good their aim is.
Right. They're always missing.
Every time.
Okay, pass or fail recording at shows?
I think pass. I'm a big supporter of, as expensive as concerts are, like we were saying, it's important to document the moment. But of course, just be courteous to those around you. I would maybe not hold up your phone the entire time and just only stare at your phone, because I think that can be a little disrespectful to the artist. But, if you want to capture those moments and also make sure that you're in the moment, I think that is a really great thing.
Yeah, I agree. I called this one a pass with nuance because in general, I'm okay with people recording at shows. I like to look at fan issues in 2 categories, whether that be fan to artist problems or fan to fan problems. And to me, recording usually falls under the fan to artist side. I mean, unless someone's holding their phone super high, using flash, or being really disruptive, it's not usually affecting the fans around them. For example, at the Eras tour, there was a little girl in front of me and she was like recording the whole thing, but it didn't really affect me. I mean, she was enjoying the show that way. I just feel like if it's not directly impacting me, I'm not going to judge or be distracted by what somebody else is doing. And it kind of reminds me of I'm not sure if you've seen on TikTok, they were really popular during the Eras tour, but somebody will film somebody else at the show. Maybe they're sitting down, maybe they're scrolling on their phone. However, they're enjoying the concert or just at the show, because at the Eras tour, people's parents came with them. So yeah, maybe they aren't Swifties, but they'll post a video of this person at the show and they'll be like, this is who you lost out on tickets to. And it's like, if you're paying that much attention to somebody else and what somebody else is doing at the show that's not even directly impacting you, then how are you enjoying the concert yourself? If you're worried about somebody else scrolling on their phone and you're recording them, you're both not paying attention to the show. But then that nuance is fan to artist perspective. I do get that if the artist is saying they don't like a lot of recording, or if you're right up in their face, if you're in the pit, not up in the 200 section, then at least pay attention or be a little bit engaged. I wouldn't be scrolling on my phone in the front row, of course. And I know Coldplay is one group that doesn't really seem to like a lot of phones at their show. And so during one of their songs, they specifically say, don't put your phone up. And it's so silly because I saw a TikTok of someone filming that exact song. Like, that's how I know about it, is because I got a TikTok on my page of somebody at the show recording that song. So please listen when they say that. I mean, at least respect that one song. But ultimately, unless it's a rule, I feel like it's just one of those things where it's like, just let people do what they do. And you know, as long as they're not in your face, I feel like it's okay. I know I personally like to record a bit at shows, and I'm a master at enjoying and living in the moment while still filming my videos because my phone is never up in my face. I'm never looking at the show through the screen. I have my phone down. I'm still dancing. My videos may not be perfect, but I do still go back and I like to listen to like the live versions of the show sometimes. So I value having those memories, and I'm still enjoying the show while I get them. But I think there's a lot of discourse with recording at shows, and I'm always so curious about it because it's kind of something that if artists do have a problem with it, they're kind of the ones in charge here. They can start to make that change. I know at Broadway shows or comedy shows, like, phones are a big no-no, and they make you put your phone in these little pouches and they lock them away. Or Cabaret, I'm thinking of specifically, they have a sticker that you put on your phone camera so that they know for sure you aren't taking pictures or recording. So I'm curious to see if any artists will start to do that. I think Bruno Mars does, but I'm curious if it will become a trend, and I wonder if anyone else will try to do that if they feel like they don't like the phones at the shows, because I do see artists complain a lot about that.
Oh, 100%. I think 10 years from now, we're definitely going to see a lot more of those pouches, which will be super interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So the next one is traveling to multiple shows on the same tour. Pass or fail?
You know, this is really hard. I think in general, pass. And, you know, there's definitely some nuance to there. I think with something like perhaps the Eras Tour, for example, if you know, like, it's going to sell out instantly. You know, I try to be as respectful as I can to allowing people to also get tickets. But, you know, I think if you're going to buy resale after the fact, then that's totally okay. But, you know, I think just trying to be courteous of others and make sure that everyone can have these experiences because, you know, it's so rare. Everyone wants to have them. You know, making sure, you know, you can still have your moment, of course, but, just, you know, loving everybody.
I also agree. I put this as a pass with nuance. For me, the nuance is kind of similar to what I said about bringing signs to shows. Like, it's okay, but what's your intention? If it's just to get attention from the artist or be recognized by that artist or within the fandom for being one of the fans that's front row every show, it's like, I think then it kind of depends. But if you're doing it for the love of the artist or the music and you're not that front row or no show type of energy, then I totally think it's fine. I do know some people argue that it takes away opportunities from other fans, but I also feel that I'm a big proponent of putting that blame back on the scalpers and the bigger problem there.
Oh, absolutely. I also think that if it's not a wasted opportunity on you, then absolutely go for it.
Yeah, that's why I was saying when it becomes a fail for me, it's really about the energy. Like when those types of people are super intense and feel like they have to be barricade every single time, and then they start cutting in line, that's when it becomes a problem. I know that was a big thing with the Harry Styles residencies, for example, where people would go to one show, be inside the venue, and while they're in there, they had friends waiting in the pit line for the next show. And then they would come out of the show and cut right to the front of the line with their friends. And I was like, that's really wrong. So that kind of stuff, absolutely a fail. But going to multiple shows in general, I mean, I'm going to talk about this later on in my show, especially relating to the money aspect of it. But if it's not breaking your bank account, then it's fine. Like, it's not really my thing to judge. Our final one kind of flips the coin a bit. This is partially inspired by what happened with Madonna last year, where she called out a fan who wasn't really engaging in the show, and that fan turned out to be in a wheelchair and she just hadn't realized it. So my question is, pass or fail when artists complain about the crowd's energy?
Ooh, I think in general, fail. I totally get wanting to have that good energy. You know, it's going to energize you, give you your best performance. And, you know, like it can definitely be discouraging when you don't see people giving you what you want necessarily. But at the same time, I think especially when it comes to bigger artists, just like understanding like, oh, I'm making, likely a lot of money when it comes to that bigger scale. And, absolutely, at the end of the day, just, making the most out of a situation. Because even though one person might not be giving all of their energy, this could be something that somebody saved up for many months to try to go to. And this is like the highlight of their year, and making sure that you can still give them that experience when possible. I think that's just super important.
I agree. I also said fail for this because at the end of the day, fans are not the performers. They're there to watch the performance. And I feel I have one example that shows how someone might not seem engaged, but there's a reason behind it. I was in the 200 section at a Billie Eilish show last year, so it's not even like it mattered. She couldn't see me, but going back to like people recording other people and calling them out for not engaging enough, that's like a good example where, she's a super high energy artist and I was with it. I was dancing in my section and stuff, but a couple times I had to sit down. But what people around me might not have known is that I had spent the past 4 hours before the show standing on my feet and volunteering for reverb. So I was interacting with people for several hours out in the concourse, and then I went into the show. So it's like by the time the show started, my feet were killing me. I was having a great time, but I just needed to sit down a couple times. So the whole thing is just focus on yourself and your own experience instead of judging other people how they're enjoying a show. You really don't know what someone else is doing or why they're doing it. And of course, people have invisible disabilities, so you really can't judge people based on how they're reacting to the show in the moment. It's not a way to decide whether somebody's a bigger fan because they're screaming louder or they're dancing harder. I mean, everybody, like I said, they pay to be there and they're not hurting anybody by enjoying this show in their own way. With that being said, if I did go to a show and it was one of those situations where I just don't know a lot from the artist, I probably wouldn't stand in the very front, but that's also just my personal preference.
Oh, definitely. And I feel like people forget just how exhausting being in a concert crowd can be. I mean, if you're standing for maybe like 3 or 4 hours, depending on how many openers you have, that takes a lot out of people. You can't always leave to get water, especially in a GA pit. So, I think just getting the most out of the situation whenever you can.
Yes, exactly. Well, that concludes our game. This was really fun, just getting to share our opinions and thoughts on general concert etiquette. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you think is important for fans to know about concert behavior, just based on your own experiences?
Yeah, so I think, kind of echoing at the points we made, I think it's all just about being respectful to those around you, being respectful to the artist, and, making the most out of the moment. Concerts are super exciting. I think that's why we all love them so much. And yeah, make these memories, but make sure that everyone can also make great memories as well.
Yes to all of that. Very great advice. I love that. And do you have anything you'd like to promote? Like, where can people follow you on social media?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I have any big projects going on at the moment, but you can follow me at Cameron.Bristow on Instagram. And thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for joining. So our lesson today? Concert etiquette is all about balance, having the time of your life while remembering that concerts are a shared experience. It's not just about you, it's about the fans beside you, the artist on stage, and even the crew working behind the scenes to make it all happen. A little self-awareness goes a long way. So whether you're scream singing, filming, or trying to secure that front row spot, just ask yourself, am I making this experience better or worse for the people around me? Because at the end of the day, a great concert isn't just about the artist. It's about the energy we create together in the crowd. And this week's discussion board, I want to hear from you. What's the craziest thing you've seen at a concert? Let me know over on Instagram at School of Pop HQ or on Substack at schoolofpop.substack.com. Before we go, I do have a little extra credit because bad audience behavior isn't just a concert thing. Moviegoers scroll through their phones mid-film, Broadway fans sing along when they shouldn't, and sometimes people just seem to forget how to act in public spaces. I chatted with Jillian Hayes, a Broadway fan and host of the podcast Jillian's Reprise, on this subject as part of a larger conversation you will hear next week. Here's what she had to say about theater audience etiquette.
I think that people have become less and less able to be away from their phones, and they're a lot less serious. And so it's becoming a lot more of an issue with the way that they digest and consume theater.
What would you say are the do's and don'ts of theater etiquette?
Do, at the very least, turn your phone on Do Not Disturb. Like, the very least. And if it's on Do Not Disturb, make sure it's on vibrate and the ringer's not on. Don't, The crunchy food, I can't stand it. I hate that they sell crunchy foods at the concessions, but I can't stand it. Just like the crinkling, the crunchy like chips, all of that, I hate it. If you have to cough, please do it into your arm as muffled as possible, because it always happens at the quietest part of the show, and then everyone else starts coughing as well. Laugh at shows. You can laugh. Like, you can interact, you can react to things. Theater is all about reactions. The audience reactions fuel the actor's performance. So react to things and react however you want to react, okay? I'm going to say that too, because apparently that needs to be said these days. You can laugh however loud you want at things. If something's funny to you, giggle away. If something is really sad to you, cry. I've cried a lot in theaters.
You'll hear more from Jillian next week when we dive into Broadway stage touring. But it's safe to say that across all entertainment spaces, we should remember to be respectful of those around us. Thanks for attending class at the School of Pop. If you enjoyed this session, please complete a course evaluation by leaving a 5-star review and share the show with a friend for extra credit. Make sure you're subscribed to School of Pop on Substack so you can get your class notes and review what we discussed today, including your homework, aka the list of references and recommendations I gave throughout this episode. That's at schoolofpop.substack.com. You can also show your school spirit by following along on Instagram at School of Pop HQ. For more pop culture fun, follow at FanFave Media, the home of School of Pop, the Pop Recap newsletter, and so much more. See you in class next week.
This has been a FanFave Media production.